Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, your ticket to all things college football. Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship to college rivalries to bowl games to the Heisman Trophy to which conference is the best. We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between.
Okay, welcome. Here we go. It's the GSMC College Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I am one of their many hosts on the site, and we do college football here on Mondays, afternoons, mornings, evenings, whenever you do choose to tune in to the podcast. That's when it starts to go down. So GSMC, where things happen, kind of like the NBA, right? You ever see those NBA commercials where they do all the slow motion effects, the last shot and all that, and then it's like NBA, where things happen. We're not talking about basketball at this particular moment, but it is going to be a fun ride today. We have a lot of stuff. Well, it's sort of fun, sort of not, because I feel like as college football fans and fans of the sport, we have taken a crucial step back from basically where we would like to be, and we don't know where we stand with college football coming back this season. And I say that to bring up coronavirus once again. I know, ooh, coronavirus, here we go again. Yeah, here we go again, because it's getting bad, man. And by bad, I mean for press, for news release, like there's just there hasn't been a good press release involving coronavirus in about 2 weeks, really, because we've just been seeing more and more and more schools announce that their players are coming back with COVID. And now worse, we're seeing schools saying that their players are being quarantined due to COVID outbreak. So LSU has quarantined 30 football players due to the COVID-19 outbreak, and at least 1/4 of their team was in quarantine this week because of the COVID virus related concerns. And the number it's continuously fluctuating based on test results. At least 30 out of the 115 players have been isolated because they tested positive or were found to have had contact with those who tested positive. And their department officials declined comment on Saturday, citing medical privacy laws, which every sports entity has done. This is what they have to do, I suppose. And they referred to SI's reported Shella Mulenix, who is the school's longtime senior associate athletic trainer. And in an interview on Saturday, Mulenix declined to confirm the numbers of those who have been in quarantine, but said the LSU situation was on par with a nationwide uptick in the virus related to Memorial Day holiday and the widespread mass gatherings from protests. It's not surprising. This is her talking. It's not surprising we're seeing the rise right now, and it's a pandemic. We should not be shocked. The story is that it's exactly what we said it would be, and they were prepared from the get-go for a lot of virus. And the good news is that they're still seeing subtle virus illnesses. Apparently, no LSU athlete or staff member has required hospitalization, and very few have experienced side effects beyond mild symptoms. Officials are thankful that athletes were on campus and where the school has quick accessibility to testing and all that. So this isn't the only school, of course, that is dealing with the likes of this. we heard that Clemson also had a pretty big outbreak, as Clemson announced that 28 people, that includes 23 football players, and then they had a few of the staff also have coronavirus, essentially. So that was when, I believe, Thursday, that this really came about, or a few days before the LSU thing. And to those known to have close contact with them, they've also been asked to be quarantined for at least 14 days. And most of the cases have been asymptomatic. And Clemson is, everybody, Clemson, LSU is not alone. Texas is having this problem. Houston is having this problem. SMU. And we're also seeing issues as far as the NFL, too. As we know, the Texans and Dallas Cowboys have also been mentioned in similar fashion. So I guess here is what the dilemma is, right, for me. And maybe this is more of a overall sporting thing. Maybe this is just a football thing. But here's my initial thoughts on all of that is, if this is what we were prepared for, what's the contingency plan for it to not happen again? Because this virus isn't going away for possibly another 10 months. As far as vaccine creation, we don't know how that's going to work, and we don't know if the vaccine can really be pushed in a timely fashion that is accessible to every person out there. And I mean that in a way that is distributed amongst, the common people and is easily accessible, and not something that only the super rich get. Because I remember when all the testing first came about of trying to get it, and only a select, people who had the resources could get testing. It was not as widely available as it is currently, and we still need more testing. Like, there's still, and we're seeing numbers, keep creeping up and up, because we are getting more people tested. But we can't use the fact that, more people getting tested means more coronavirus as an ideology of that means that it's not as, it just makes it more scary the more it comes out. And it's not about the, it's this 1,000 something new cases. And the first thing people like to say is, oh, well, there's more testing. Well, yeah, sure, there's more testing, but that also means that people are just walking around with the virus all the time. So just because you have more testing doesn't mean that there's some proportion that, makes it all right for everybody to kind of just be out and about. And that's just where the country's at right now. We don't know. Some states are still very much in phase 2, some maybe in phase 1. Or if you're in like the southeastern side of the United States, there's a lot of people who are really just out and about all the time and not wearing masks and not, having precautions while being out. And it's scary to think about, because this is something that we've never had to deal with before, to where you have to look, like when we look outside, when you breathe in the air, you fear nothing. You don't see anything. The idea of this thing creating, like, it's fear mongering or making hysteria among people. I mean, there was some sort of, everybody was afraid because we didn't know what we were doing. Like, we'd never done this before. So the first month, yeah, everybody was afraid. Everybody was in the house. Everybody was just checking the news every day at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We're living on the East Coast, on the east side of the United States. But whenever the news would, cut on for your time, you were glued because you had no idea, one, what this virus is doing, how is it contracted, how do we get it, what do we need to do. 2, we didn't know about, job security, money, people have to pay rent, people have children, people have responsibilities that still come up, even though, like, coronavirus didn't stop people's responsibilities to live. And also, we needed to know what each state was doing, let alone we needed to know what everybody else was doing around the world, so everybody tuned in. And there was a shift in time where we went from worrying about how do we handle the spread of this virus, like flattening the curve, to the point to where we can start to move towards it. And we kind of dropped the ball on that as a country. And I feel that, well, maybe I shouldn't say we dropped the ball, right? This is kind of an open thought. This is not really something about dropping the ball, because I don't think anybody is right or wrong with how we maneuver with this. But I will say that there is also, I feel like there's a lot of people being insensitive about certain things. People being selfish about certain things. Like the whole not wearing masks, not wanting to wear masks because they're uncomfortable. Well, I've always been taught to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's a football term. That's what football coaches say. So if you're familiar with football, you probably have heard that phrase before. So I don't like to be a part of the whole suck it up crowd, but, suck it up, wear the mask, because maybe it's not for you, right? Think about it like that. In reality, the mask isn't to protect you more so than from you to potentially spread it to somebody else. And there was a point to where masks were out. Like, we didn't have a lot of masks going around, and people didn't have the luxury of having a mask. Some people had to wear shirts. That doesn't really necessarily help you as much, but it's something. We didn't have everything that we needed. And now that things are getting mass produced, you see how, companies work to make money around here. Like, everybody's trying to get their dollar. So you see branding all over these masks now. So you got UGA mask, you got LSU Tiger mask, you got Falcons mask, you got, Eagles mask, you got whatever mask you want. You're going to find it now. And that's well and good, but we have to remember that just because people have masks now doesn't mean that they want to wear them, especially because of the summertime. And that is something that I was speaking about with my sister. As we're recording this, it's Father's Day. And, shout out to all the dads out there, and shout out to all the father figures in life. That doesn't have to mean that you are a man to be somebody who could teach them how to be a man. So shout out to all the single mothers out there who had to, raise a son without a father and all that. But I was hanging out with the family, and we were talking about this whole coronavirus stuff because I knew I had to talk about it today. And my sister and I, we kind of thought of a real strong point about people don't like to waste good weather, I guess. And the summer, it's been a weird year. Like 2020 at the start, it was cold, it was rainy, it was weather filled all across the nation. And people were really, really ready for this summer to come. People were ready to get out. People were ready to, live their best life. And here comes, the coronavirus to basically put the whole world on an instant halt. Like, you couldn't travel. You can't travel. You barely can really travel now. And if you can't, well, let me say consciously, not with good conscience, it's hard for someone to go travel if it's not necessary for your work. And even then, if you are not really required to do it, traveling is kind of weird, especially by plane where there's just so many people involved. So everything's kind of on a halt. And then fast track, maybe 2 months from everything's on a halt, while the rest of the world is kind of still following suit with keeping things locked down, the U.S. kind of slowly moved to opening up businesses and doors and so on and so forth with different, stages of plans. And I think personally, for me, I feel like the plans they were too fast. I think that we've moved in a sense of trying to save a bit of time to make more profit, and it's going to hurt us in the long run, personally. Because I'm one of those people that believe the second wave is going to happen. And I don't want to, I'm not saying this to say, oh, I'm right, the second wave is happening. I don't want the second wave to happen. I want people to be able to go outside and be amongst other people, free of worry from contracting and spreading a virus that can be really, really nasty. But let's remember that a lot of people at the top of the health talking circles are predicting a second wave to come before we can get a vaccine out, primarily during a time where it's colder, Flu season is in full rampant, and I don't know what's going to happen. No one knows what's going to happen then. But what I do know is that everyone's trying to push to make the last money, the last dollar. That's how it feels to me. I feel like everybody's pushing to make the last dollar before the shutdown happens again. Because there's just no way that if there's going to be a second wave, that we're going to be more prepared for it. But just because we're prepared for it doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to go to a halt again. That's why I believe the NBA is trying to finish out the season, because they have a small window of time to capitalize on it. The NFL, we really don't know when the NFL or college football is going to look like, because it happens later on during the fall. So we don't know how that's going to look. We know we're sending kids back to school, and we don't know how that's going to really boil over, but we're going to see soon enough just how much of this is really going to affect things. But we're going to take our first break, and we're going to get into some more conversations about, social changes in college football.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, so coming back in, we were just wrapping up the whole coronavirus thing, and now we got more things to talk about, man. So it is something that I still struggle with bringing in to words, because it's something that I've lived with my whole life, and that's dealing with the idea of my own race, because I'm a black man that lives in the world, in the nation of America, and dealing with scrutiny all the time at your doorstep. As soon as you leave your house, you do have there's no telling what could happen to you. And technically that's everybody. Life is very, very short, very fleeting. And it's a miracle that we walk in and out of our house every day and be able to sleep, say goodnight to the people we care about the most. That is a miracle. So never take it for granted. And it's like your senses get heightened, and your risks get heightened, and you have more proportions on certain things that may potentially happen to you just because of the color of your skin. And you grow up with it your whole life, and it's put on you without, they don't ask you, of course, how this gets, made, or how these decisions get made. You just are born black, and things happen to you because of that. And we have to realize as a society that we capitalize on certain racial injustices, and without, giving proper change, proper ideology, and proper thought onto what this means. So we're trying to dismantle, as a nation, a lot of the scars that still show its ugly heads across the country. That has to do with, the removing of statues, the changing of school names, the changing of buildings, the removal of symbols and flags and things that really should be simple. You would think they would be simple, but it isn't for a lot of people, because, racism is something that is ingrained. Racism is taught, and it's taught from generations to generations. If the person decides to take it in, of course. And college football is they're not, absolved from this. College football has a lot of things that they can change to make it better for the mass majority of players that come and make the game great. So, for example, the SEC is having a humongous thing going on with this. So, the NCAA may have to really put some fire underneath Mississippi's behind in order to change their school from hosting postseason events and things like that, because they have some issues going on with what they have. So the Mississippi Coast Coliseum is not really in an intimidating structure, but the enclosed beachfront area only sits about 11,000 people. So it's it's a normal building, but it has a blemish across really that whole town. So it has really, really identifying symbols, and right up there with boiled shrimp and fishing boats. This is the Gulf Coast. This is what people do. So Mississippi football is something that people just care about, but we have to know that flag that is used to hang above is just not, we can't have that. You know how many African American players, how many black players have to forcefully play under a flag that doesn't represent them, that I don't care, it's like your heritage. That doesn't even make any sense. Because, sure, it could be your heritage, but that just means that you're racist in a sense, that your heritage is racist, is built off of racism, and it shouldn't be something that you should take a lot of pride in. And Thursday morning, I believe, people have been seeing this flag, go across for days, hours, years, and people are really starting to wake up because they're seeing statues being taken down, or seeing names be changed, and this Civil War era, flag, Confederate flag piece just has to go. It needs to go. And the SEC has threatened them, or if they can't threaten them, we may have to see other people step in and take action. And as a state with no major professional teams, Mississippi lives and dies off of, Southern Miss, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. The Golden Eagles for a while were big time things. They played against Alabama, Florida State, Nebraska, and as recently as 2015, Ole Miss won the Sugar Bowl, and in 2014, Mississippi State was ranked number 1 in the nation. And it's not really only football that this happens in, college baseball and a lot of things people don't pay attention to, but it's kind of like a religion there, like ballparks in Oxford and Starksville, and they can draw up to like 10,000 people. And then the 3 schools also, host college baseball postseason tournaments, regionals, super regionals. And the NCAA on Friday revisited language in the 2001 rule that already bans Mississippi from housing predetermined championship events, or from hosting things like that, like men's NCAA basketball regionals or golf championship tournaments. And the adjustment to the policy broadened the ban to encompass all NCAA postseason championships, predetermined and post events such as baseball, softball regionals, and first and second round games of women's basketball tournament. And this unprecedented step comes on a fitting day. This happened on Juneteenth. So late Thursday evening, a lot of powerful players on Mississippi's political stage revealed the NCAA's potential plan to Sports Illustrated under the condition of anonymity. So the sheer suggestion of such to move is a boot in the butt to Mississippi state lawmakers and their constituents, and themselves having resisted the progressive step forward for years now, being forced into it by, of all people, the NCAA. So, I think people are starting to wake up and seeing just how far how deep this runs. People, Confederate flags, statues of Confederate soldiers and generals and people that like to be celebrated within U.S. history from that Civil War era, they are around us all the time. They are near us all the time. They are something that is a constant reminder of the past and what has happened in U.S. history. And there's places for that. That belongs in museums. That belongs in historical documentation. That doesn't belong in places of high esteem for where we conduct justice, where we conduct changes and modifications of law. It doesn't belong on the name of a library. It doesn't belong on the name of an educational center, a school, a hospital, any building. These names don't belong there, because if you believe in what, your constitutional rights as man, and if you believe every man is equal, and if you believe every person is equal, you can't stand by what these people fought against. You can't stand with what these people fought against. Heritage or not, that's not where we are as a nation anymore, or where we shouldn't be anymore. And you have to be able to see that. And I think everybody is starting to open their eyes to this. Has to be a change and a step in the right direction, and it's long overdue. These statues, these symbols, they have to be stripped away. And to a lot of people, this feels like power is being stripped away from them, in a sense. And it's been taken by force. They feel like they have to be defensive against this. And I would ask those same people, why do you feel like you need them to feel prideful in your southernness, or in your roots of your old grandpappy, or anything that matters? There's so many other things that you can hold pride in besides, deep-rooted racism and things that you may not even realize that are racist. Like, we can even play that card. You may not even realize the things that you believe in are, in fact, racist. It could be subtle. It could be, subconsciously. It could be consciously. But you may not realize what you do, what you say, how you live your life is racist. Or at least inconsiderate and insensitive to people of color and to black people specifically. And taking down a statue is the bare minimum. First of all, there's a lot more change that has to come. So taking down the statues of things at like Clemson, where players like Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins are petitioning and trying to get people to change the name of their stadiums and to their buildings, and holding your coaches accountable for things that they've either said currently or said in the past, and getting people to really, really open their eyes to see black people in America have to walk around day in and day out and see things that remind them of the pain, the anger, the frustration, the injustice, the racism, the prejudice, the disgusting nature that this country has been, continues to be in the shadows, and was, quite frankly, founded upon to even greater extent. And we have to be able to move past that if we're ever going to find ourselves in a better place than where we are now, because the social construct of our lives are breaking. Like, these things are getting broken. Things are not good right now. People are tense. People are upset. People are angry. People have a different tone when they speak. People have a different walk differently. They feel differently. People are politically charged. People are looking at themselves in the mirror. People are looking at their friends in the mirror. People are looking at their family differently because of what's going on, and people just want things that have been done right to them, or people want things that can be done right so that way they can bring children into this world and say that their world is a good place for them. And if we can't get to that point because we can't take down buildings, or we can't take down building names, and we can't take down statues, and we can't take down flags or symbols that represent an old world. That is the old world. We can't keep bringing up the past without fixing the mistakes in it. We can't keep preserving the past without trying to rectify why we don't even want to speak about it. We don't put our history in textbooks, at least not the ones that people don't want to see. We always celebrate the people who founded this country. We never talk about what exactly happened for that founding to take place. Not in the dramatics, not in the deeper sense. We always withhold things. And maybe that's to keep children's minds as, innocent as possible. But at a certain point, people need to know. And also we have to stop pretending that, America was always a great land, because it wasn't. It may have built its way to this, but that doesn't mean that how it was built to this was in good conscience. So this is the first step of taking that, and get ready, because there's going to be a lot more. And college football, the NCAA, is taking steps and seeing that. They see where the culture shift is going, because people are not just going to sit idly by anymore. That's not happening anymore. People want change. So you best be prepared for change to come. All right. We're going to take another break, and we're going to be talking more about the Big 12. So we're going to get into some Big 12 strength of schedule conversation. That's coming up. GSMC.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Okay, GSMC Nation, here we are back with GSMC College Football Podcast, and we're about to get rolling. I hope people watch wrestling, or they did back in the day, because, I kind of regret it. Honest truth, I did not watch wrestling like that, and I feel like I missed out on a lot of different cultural references that I don't necessarily understand. But I do understand one thing, that's ring entrances, because I think if everybody had a chance to walk down a ring and be introduced with their name called and a theme music of their choice and thematics and crowd screaming and cheering or jeering, depending if you're the heel or, you're the hero guy, I think that's something that everybody wants to feel like. Personally, like I was watching Creed 2 with the family, because, I recorded this on Father's Day. And let me tell you, that interest when he first fights Drago's son, I should say, but when he first fights, the baby Drago, that intro is hard, man. The intro is really, really exciting, riveting, great practical effects, great lighting effects. I want to do something like that. I want to be introduced like that. What if I got introduced like that on GSMC? just, I don't even know what my music track would be. I don't know. But I want to know what you guys' are. So if you guys know what our social media is, which it should be on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for the GSMC, hit us up on Twitter at GSMC College Football and message me what your intro track would be for your walk down a wrestling, boxing, MMA, any sort of sport of your choosing that has intros like that. Let me know. Okay, so we're going to get into some Big 12 strength of schedule rankings, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So just to let you know what the methodology is based off this metric that we talked about maybe a week ago, I believe, may have been 2, but this person ranks all 130 teams using a statistical model that judges teams based on their performances in games. His opinion plays no role in it, and history often gives us the best glimpse into the future. So he uses the rankings from previous seasons to get an idea of how good any given team can expect to be the next season. Teams are given a weight that coincides with the past performance, and these weights are applied when going through each team's schedule. So he adds and subtracts additional weights based on when and where the game is being played. Road games are more difficult, of course, than home games through statistics, and playing on Thursday night game after playing a previous Saturday adds a degree of difficulty as well. So we're going to do the least to the top tier. So here we go. Number 10 is Oklahoma State. So while Oklahoma State's projected strength of schedule difficulty is still above the national average, the Big 12 is the only conference that doesn't feature a below average projection. So that's pretty good. Like overall, like Big 12, they are still minus 15% from strength of schedule, but overall they are 4.7%, so almost 5%. And there's a sizable gap between it and Kansas State, as Kansas State is number 9. This is thanks to mostly the Cowboys' non-conference slate. So they start this year against the Oregon State team that had the best season since 2013, but those 5 seasons between were bleak, and even last year the Beavers finished only 5-7. Then there's Tulsa, where they're a team that finished outside the top 80 in his ratings, and 7 times in the last 8 years. So top that with some Western Illinois, and well, that's how you get this type of schedule. And that projects to be the least difficult in the Big 12. Next is Kansas State, like I just said. And it's not really an exciting non-conference schedule. And they play, as the Wildcats will host 3 home games against Buffalo, North Dakota, and Vanderbilt. And Kansas State is a pretty decent football club. You know, if you watch them, they can kind of make some noise. So the Cats are a bit of at a disadvantage in having to play 5 of their Big 12 games: West Virginia, TCU, Iowa State, Oklahoma, and Baylor on the road. But they at least get spaced out, and both TCU and Iowa State are consecutive games, but there's a bye in between them. So they get a little bit of rest. And they're in the Big 12, they're minus 4.6%, and overall they are 13.4%. It's just 13%. We'll just do that. We'll round it up, make it easier on me. So 8, West Virginia, the home of something. I don't know. I've never been to West Virginia. I want to go though, because I want to go watch a West Virginia game, because I've always been interested in seeing them. I think it was mainly due to the really, I guess, their quarterbacks. Like they had Denard Robinson back in the day, I believe, West Virginia. And how can we forget about the infamous quarterback of all time, Geno Smith? Remember him? His NFL career did not end or did not finish out well for him personally. But, I mean, he's still technically playing. But it's not, it didn't pan out the way that he might have hoped. But West Virginia still continues on. The Mountaineers are the only Big 12 team with 2 Power 5 opponents on their non-conference schedule. Unfortunately, neither of the opponents carries a ton of weight these days, but Florida State is a bigger opponent in the name recognition, the actually performance lately, and then Maryland struggled throughout their last decade, and the toughest stretch of West Virginia's schedule is in November, when they will go up against Oklahoma, at Oklahoma State, Baylor, and at Iowa State to finish. So 14% overall, and they have a -4 in the Big 12. Then we go to Texas Tech, the home of Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes. So Texas Tech, this is no soft non-conference slate. So the season will open up with a game at UTEP before a home opener against Alabama State. And then there's a home date with the Arizona program that's taken a significant step backward in his rating system each of the last 2 seasons. And he doesn't like the way Tech's Big 12 schedule sets up either, that they have Texas and Oklahoma at home, but odds aren't in their favor of the Raiders winning those games anywhere. Meanwhile, the more winnable games, like those against Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and TCU, are all on the road. So overall strength of schedule is for about 15%, and their Big 12 is 3%. Next, we get to Oklahoma. Oklahoma. So Oklahoma is in the middle of all this, so you know what that usually means. They have some strong games, and they also have some games that kind of pen themselves easier than others. So as Kansas was helped out not having to play, Kansas, Oklahoma is hurt by not having to play Oklahoma. So a home date with Tennessee headlines the non-conference slate, and the game doesn't project as well here. Because Tennessee's recent performances lag behind its projections for 2020. So the game could easily carry more weight in the season, but as it stands, Oklahoma's road game against Army carries more weight than the non-conference. In the Big 12, the Sooners get Texas in the Cotton Bowl, and Oklahoma State must come to Norman. So also, the Oklahoma State game in late October might be the last true test in the Sooners face. As back half of the schedule is relatively soft, only one of Oklahoma's final 5 games, against one of them being Kansas State, will be against the team that went bowling last year. So that's TCU, West Virginia, and Texas Tech will all be on the road at least. So that's a 15 overall and a 3% overall rounded up. Next is TCU at 5. So TCU's schedule gets a big boost thanks to some odds by placement. The Frogs start the season on the road against Cal before a home opener against Prairie View A&M. And then comes a bye and then 10 consecutive games. That concludes a 3-week stretch starting on Halloween that sees the Frogs play Oklahoma, Iowa State, and Texas. Only Texas will be on the road, and the Big 12 opener comes on the first weekend of October at home against Oklahoma State. That's an 18% overall on the schedule. In Big 12, they are the first team in the Big 12 to have a positive percentage with 1%, essentially. 4, Iowa State. So, as an annual game against Iowa always gives Iowa State's non-conference slate a higher floor than most others, but neither South Dakota or UNLV did much to raise it further. Three of the Cyclones' tougher games will come before all late October bye, and aside from Iowa on the road, they'll play Oklahoma State and against Oklahoma in Ames in consecutive weeks. In October, so then, after the bye, there are 2 road dates with TCU and Texas, as well as home dates with Kansas State, Baylor, and West Virginia. 19% right there. Really 20%, so it's 19.76. Big 12 is 3% even, flat. That's how I like it. 3, Baylor. So Baylor has had a long been pegged as a program that's scheduled easy non-conference games every season, and there is still some of that visible in the home date against Incarnate World. But the games of the week against Louisiana Tech carries more weight now than it might have been a few years ago, thanks to the uptick in performance of Louisiana Tech. But there's also a season opener against Ole Miss in Houston. And what really gave the Bears a huge nudge overall, however, was having to play Oklahoma, Texas, and Iowa State on the road. And the home slate is a bit more manageable. So that's a 21% overall and a 5% in the Big 12. 2 is Texas. So Texas projects to have the 11th most difficult schedule in this guy's projections overall across the country. But if it weren't for Kansas, the Longhorns would be higher and ranked number 1 in the Big 12. And this is thanks to mostly the road game against LSU in this non-conference schedule. That's the toughest non-con game by Big 12 will play this season, and throw in the annual meeting with Oklahoma as well as Oklahoma State in Stillwater. And this is the makings of being a really, really tough schedule. We'll keep it from top 10 aside from Kansas and a game against UTEP. So that's 25%. That's a 25 overall percentage. That's the highest I've seen, except for when we get to Kansas. And they have a 9% in the Big 12. So Kansas has had, some improvements, but they're just going to have to keep on going, man. And they have a huge advantage in the Big 12 when it comes to projecting the strongest schedule. And since the Big 12 plays a round-robin schedule, that means everybody plays Kansas except for Kansas. So when the non-conference slate isn't particularly daunting, so they play New Hampshire, Boston College, and Coastal Carolina, the Jayhawks' overall projection is helped by not having Kansas on it. And of course, that doesn't mean the schedule doesn't have rough spots. They finished the year with Texas at Texas Tech, at Oklahoma and TCU in November. And that won't be fun for them. They have a 26 overall strength of schedule, and in the Big 12, they are 10% basically. So that's the strength of schedule for the Big 12, and we're going to take a break here real quick, and we're going to come back into the Big 12 again. But we're going to be talking about the top 10 players to watch in the Big 12 as we return to the 2020 college football season. This is still the GSMC College Football Podcast, and we'll be right back after that. Nice break from some of our sponsors.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, GSMC Nation, we are in the last little steps of our podcast here for this evening, but don't fret, we're going to make it a good one, and we're going to have some fun with it all together. So we are going to be doing the Big 12 players to watch for 2020. Now, we all know the Big 12 had some heavy hitters that came into the draft, and they have left us now. So CeeDee Lamb is no longer with us in the college football space. Everybody shed a small tear for losing CeeDee Lamb. He will be missed. Devin Duvernay, he will be missed from Texas. TCU's Jalen Reagor, he will be missed. Shed some tears. Even if it's silently, shed one tear. But while those that were, there will be more to come. So here we go with the top 10 list of the best returning players in the Big 12. So, Trey Sterling, safety out of Oklahoma State. So Sterling played almost near equal snaps in the box and in the slot and at free safety. So regardless of where he was aligned, he was better than most safeties in coverage. When in the box, he allowed just 36 yards on 107 coverage snaps. In the slot, he allowed only 7 first downs on 24 targets while forcing 5 incompletions. And when playing deep safety, he was responsible for only 2 catches on 115 coverage snaps while intercepting 1 and forcing 2 incompletions. So, while while offensive will likely steal the limelight, their offensive side will steal the limelight in 2020, we should not be sleeping on, their defense here. And their defense boasts several talented defensive backs, including Sterling, who was a former 3-star prospect in the top 100 class of 2017. And Sterling enjoyed a breakout sophomore season that past fall en route to earning 11 starts and being voted by coaches as an all Big 12 honorable mention. The Sunnyvale, Texas native finished the season recording 41 tackles with 8 pass breakups and interception. So if Sterling can build up on his impressive 2019 campaign, the combo of him and fellow safety Colby Harville Peel could prove to be problematic for opposing passing attacks. Number 9 is Chuba Hubbard, Oklahoma State running back. Now, very, very funny name. Chuba Hubbard. Chuba, like Chuba, Chuba. I'm already a fan. Just gotta say, I'm already a fan of the name. In his 2 years of the collegiate action, Hubbard has far from disappointed. His 2-year rushing grade in the ninth best in the country. So when given the ball in the backfield, Hubbard showed a great level of field vision and patience to allow his offensive line to create holes, and he took advantage of the ones that opened up. In 2019 alone, he produced 15 runs that were ended with a 30-plus yard gain, 4 more than anyone else in college football. So it's kind of a bit of a head scratcher that he isn't higher on this list, considering that he finished 2019 season as the nation's leading rusher with 2,094 yards. The former 3-star prospect from Canada led the FBS with 15 rushes of 30 yards or longer, of course, and he only needed 6 games to reach 1,000 yards in rushing, en route to recording the most rushing yards by an Oklahoma State player since Barry Sanders' record-setting campaign in 1988. Those flashy numbers, to no surprise, earned him the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year honors, and Oklahoma State faithful can only hope that this is yet the best to come for Hubbard after electing to return to Stillwater in 2020 as opposed to entering the NFL draft. So another one of those guys who, chose to come back. Number 8 is Charlie Kolar, Iowa State, and tight end. So Kolar's 675 yards during the 2019 regular season set up a new Iowa State tight end record, while his 48 receptions and 7 touchdowns in the regular season both ranked second all-time in program history. 6'6", 252, Kolar emerged onto the national scene when he reeled in a touchdown in 6 of the first 7 Big 12 games en route of being named the first team all Big 12. It didn't take long for Kolar's name to generate discussion in NFL circles, and ESPN NFL analyst Todd McShay was among the voices to praise Kolar early on, but the rising redshirt junior who grew up around the corner from the Big 12 rival Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma, is back for another season in Ames and figures to build upon a breakout season in the program's tight end room. So, also a little tidbit. While he's been used extensively on crosser routes, There wasn't a better vertical route running tight end in the country than him. In 2019, he saw 16 vertical route targets and caught 12 of them for 239 yards and 4 touchdowns, and that leading the way to the highest Pro Football Focus receiving grade among those at his position and the highest grade regardless of position among Power 5 receivers. So take that for what you will. Number 7 here, Kobe Harvey Peel, or Harville Peel. I don't know why I was going to say Harvey. Maybe it's because I was watching Family Feud a little bit earlier. Colby Harville Peel from Oklahoma State is the other safety. So he was better than most true freshman safeties in 2018, recording a 67 coverage grade. And in his sophomore year, Harville Peel looked like an upperclassman in coverage by producing an 89.5 coverage grade, ranking 8th among FBS safeties and leading the way of being one of the 10 most valuable safeties in the country. Harville Peel spent most of his time at free safety, and that's where his play shined, improving his coverage rank from 5th while allowing just 4 first downs, intercepting 2 passes, and forcing 6 incompletions. So he really made his mark in 2019, and he was really, really everywhere, making tackles, defending passes, intercepting everything in sight, and by mid-November, he already topped his season total of tackles from 2018 en route to finishing his sophomore campaign, posting 71 tackles, 5 interceptions, 13 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, 2 recovered fumbles, a sack, 3 tackles for loss, and a quarterback hurry. So the native from College Station, Texas, and former 3-star prospect Harville Peel was named first team All Big 12 selection last year, and he continues to show signs that he will be another steal for the Oklahoma State crew. All right, number 6, Talon Wallace, Oklahoma State. So Wallace saw his 2019 season get cut short due to injury, but he still managed to have a successful year by posting a 82.6 receiving grade. That was 4th best among Big 12 wide receivers, and he was behind CeeDee Lamb, Devin Duvernay, and of course Denzel Mims. They all went drafted. So Wallace's usage was vastly different in 2019 compared to his 2018 season when he was among the 20 most valuable wide receivers in college football. That year, nearly a third of his targets came on vertical routes, and he also saw a good number of deep in and outs. Overall, he had an average depth of the target of 17.4 yards. In 2019, he saw the number dip down over 6 yards, and Wallace used a lot of underneath. 35% of his total production came from such routes, as opposed to just 3% in 2018. So he tore his ACL, of course, in practice, and he finished as the leading wide receiver for the team with 53 receptions for 903 yards and 8 touchdowns. So he really got it in, even if he was healthy, even if he wasn't healthy all the way. So if he comes back from injury as a much more effective passer, there's no reason why Wallace, even healthy from the start and the end, can't post better numbers yet. And by healthy, I mean Spencer Sanders. So Spencer Sanders also was injured. So Oklahoma State has some issues on the offensive side, staying healthy, but hopefully they'll keep it together. Charlie Brewer is at 5 from Baylor. So Brewer didn't live up quite to the hype, producing just an 80 grade in 2019, but he was one of the 20 most valuable signal callers for the season. Brewer posted nearly identical rates of positively graded throws, but had a very few errant turnover-worthy plays. That being said, his positively graded play rate ranked top 30 in college football, despite his 2018 and 2019 being oddly different, especially regarding his accuracy. Brewer is still among 15 to 20 best returning quarterbacks in the country, and could climb that list if he gets back to his 2018 form. Okay, the 4th player on this list is Ardarius Washington out of TCU. So he was a redshirt freshman who got a lot bigger role as the season progressed and ended up the 2nd highest graded safety in 2019. First and foremost, Washington's tackling was outstanding, and the 5'8" safety missed only 3 of his 48 attempts all year long. He recorded 265 snaps in coverage and and was responsible for only 5 catches allowed while forcing 7 combined interceptions and pass breakups. And that's unheard of. Number 3 is Trayvon Moehrig. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Moehrig. So regardless of draft class, Moehrig was the most valuable safety of 2019 and had the 3rd most valuable season we will see in Pro Football Focus college era. And regardless of where he was on the field, Moehrig was an absolute playmaker. He was one of the best tasked with manning the slot, and when he had an elite 90.8 coverage grade and allowed just 14 of 29 targets to be caught, while intercepting 3 and forcing 8 incompletions overall in coverage. He forced 17 contested targets and allowed just 2 to be caught. He is clearly the best safety in college football and is putting together a career that one of the best that you've ever seen at the position. So keep him in your thoughts for sure. Number 2, quarterback Brock Purdy from Iowa State. So Purdy ended up finishing the 2018 season ranked 11th with an 89.3 Pro Football Focus grade. And he didn't quite live up to those heightened expectations in 2019. And he produced a 79.4 grade. And a lot of Purdy's success from 2018 came from his performance under pressure, which we know is a lot of more volatile metrics for a quarterback. Clean pocket play is the most telling. And this is an area where he excelled in 2019. He didn't produce a whole lot of big-time throws down the field, but was great on a throw-for-throw basis. When clean, Purdy had the 4th lowest rate of negatively graded throws and also ranked in the top 30 in rate positively graded. So he can evade pressure better than most and has great composure when things aren't going his way. Number 1 is Sam Ehlinger from Texas. So in each of the past 2 seasons, he's finished as the 6th most valuable player in college football. Among quarterbacks to play the last 2 seasons, Ehlinger's 2-year overall grade ranks behind only Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, and Nathan Rourke. Ehlinger is known for being used as Texas's design rushing attack and for bailing on the pocket and scrambling when needed. His arm, though, is the reason why he lands at number 1 on his list. He was forced to throw into tight window at one of the 25 highest rates last season, and he didn't let that hinder himself or the team. His tight window passing grade was 3rd in the country, and his rate of accurate passes was thrown as the 8th best. So, anytime you check in as a senior quarterback with multiple years, starting experience as the program of Texas' stature, expectations are bound to be high. Ehlinger already got a taste of that, of course, last season, and his junior campaign last fall saw him pass for 3,000 yards, or 3,663 yards and 32 touchdowns. And both of those are career highs, and while he rushed for an additional 663 and 3 touchdowns, his career top 10 interceptions was accompanied by those figures. So, if Ehlinger in his final season in Austin produces a similar clip or better while cleaning up the things that he needs to fix, it will be because of the combination of staff changes and Ehlinger's personal growth will have turned unproven commodities on the perimeter into legitimate weapons. So as good as Ehlinger was as a junior, making it necessary strides for the betterment of the offense as a senior is a kind of improvement that could have him in New York City in December and Texas in a position to play for much more than the Big 12 title. So, without a doubt, that is your top 10 for the Big 12 players returning for 2020. And that is the end of the GSMC College Football Podcast. I hope you all enjoy what you listen to. I hope you all learned something, because I feel like I learn something every time I do this. I encourage everyone to go like, subscribe, give us a good rating. Find us wherever you listen to us and give us a nice rating, man. 5 stars, 5 stars. Don't forget to check us out on social media. Don't forget, send me the song that you would walk out to in a wrestling arena. Twitter, GSMC College Football. Hit me up. I'll respond. And be nice, please. All right. This is GSMC. This is Ethan. I'll see you all next week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From football to basketball, baseball to MMA, and even soccer. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast.